Welcome to the Coffee Snobs podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
So grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience. We explore it all because life is too short to drink bad coffee. Here we go.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Coffee Snobs podcast. We have a really fun episode going out today.
Yeah.
We are at a special location. Where are we, Aaron?
We are at Enderly in downtown Charlotte, or uptown Charlotte, right?
Yeah. I think they must be paying you because
I'm here quite often.
You're here a lot. You talk about them every episode.
I promise. I seriously promise. I am not sponsored, nor have I received any free payment from Enderly.
Hashtag hosted. Hashtag ad. No, I'm actually having a latte right now that is delicious.
Yeah, it's the smoked whiskey latte. It's their seasonal right now. It's really good.
And I'm trying their hibiscus latte.
Oh, you're doing the hibiscus?
Yeah, it's good. It's got a lot of floral notes and stuff. So anyway, coming to you from Enderly, today's episode 8, we are excited about a new series that we're going to be having over the next several episodes entitled How to Know What You Don't Know.
Yeah, because I think in coffee there's a lot that we don't know, and a lot of times it's really trying to figure out what test to run or what study or what to listen to, like how to understand if it's sour versus bitter, like those things.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to understand, and so our goal with this series is to really help you to know what you don't know, or at least start the trial so that way you can understand.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't know, and it's just interesting. Like I said, you might prefer the analytical method that Aaron is so big on, the nerd and the geek data, or you might just be like, I just like what I like and how it tastes. So anyway, how to know what you don't know, and today's focus is going to be on caffeine content.
Yeah, that is.
So excited about that.
Before we jump in, Tyler, what's new with you? What new coffee you got?
What is new with me? Well, I have a fresh bag of beans I just purchased from Enderly, a Guatemalan blend. I've tried their Ethiopian in the past, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Did you get a recent bag from Trade, or you got one coming, don't you?
I am excited. Yes, I have a new bag of coffee that should be arriving today or tomorrow from Trade Coffee, which I think I mentioned before. It's another, it's from Kickapoo Roasters, which is out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to try it because the bag is, they say it's made for cold brew. A lot of times in cold brew coffee, one thing is it's mellow, so there's not a lot of the floral notes and the tasting notes you might taste in a hot coffee. But this bag is supposed to be good as drip coffee, pour over, espresso, or cold brew. So might do a couple tests.
Dude, it's the all-in-one is what it sounds like.
So it sounds too good to be true, but we'll give it a shot. So what's new with you,
man.
Aaron?
Well, I have now taken a job with a company downtown Charlotte. It's actually the company that Chad runs. It's LockDoc, so I'm creating content and generating for them. But the great part about that is now I have a daily commercial machine that I have been able to.
So you really just took a job to get access to good coffee.
Yeah, to great coffee.
That's dedication.
I mean,
right
seriously,
there.
like the amount of caffeine that I am consuming is slightly concerning.
That'll be interesting to talk about on today's top.
Yeah.
So Chad again he's just a busy man. He's actually on super secret probation, but I think I shouldn't have said that because now it's not a secret. But no, Chad will be back with us very soon.
Yeah. So it's definitely a busy season at LockDoc, and as always, you can find us at our social handles introduced at the end of the show. But hey, let's get into this first
Today's
topic.
So Aaron, I think you have some
I've
data nerd stuff.
Yeah,
so we're talking about caffeine content in coffee. So basic question. If you take the same coffee bean, Aaron, and you put it in a pour over or an espresso, is the caffeine content going to be the same?
Well, so there are a few variables that that you have to understand when getting a drink and wanting the most bang for your volume, meaning the most bang for the content in the cup. So if you've got 8 ounces of coffee, is a Americano, which is 2 shots of espresso and then water, 6 ounces of water, or you get 8 ounces of drip coffee or pour over, what's going to pack more caffeine in that volume.
Okay.
And so with that, I think a lot of people would say, and I would have said until I did my research, that
coffee is coffee.
Right, coffee's coffee, right?
Okay.
And the answer to that is correct. Most people would say like a bolder taste is a more caffeinated drink.
Okay.
Right. So diving down a little bit more, light versus dark roast.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt too much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Historically, the people have heard probably of a breakfast blend. That's a fairly common blend in all kind of coffees. So you think about that as being more mellow, maybe not as caffeinated. But if I'm not mistaken, isn't a lighter roast typically will have more caffeine content than a dark roast? No.
So that's the very weird thing about coffee is coffee has its caffeine no matter light or dark roast.
Okay.
So it's just the flavor and the intensity of the coffee taste. So think about a lighter coffee taste, something that has a more floral notes that would not...
Like a light or medium roast.
A light or medium roast. They yield the same amount of caffeine. It's just
a darker roast.
Exactly. So it's just a bolder taste, maybe a bitter taste. And so we have associated a bolder, more traditional coffee, burnt coffee, like Starbucks. You're like,
sure.
Starbucks is super caffeinated. Well, no, it's just their burnt coffee,
that's
and
just
that's
their
what we
flavor
associate.
Profile.
Right.
Okay.
That's what we
It's
associate.
just science.
Yes. Yep. And so getting back to light versus dark roast, it's the same. I want to break that down. So if you take 8 ounces of dark, or let's say 16 grams of
the same bean. We're talking about the same bean.
Exactly.
So,
same bean, light roast versus dark roast.
It's gonna be the same.
It's exactly the same because you got to remember that bean, when it comes out of the cherry, it could be a light roast or a dark roast. It's just the roasting process.
Yep. Okay.
So the roasting process is not adding or taking away caffeine.
Sure. Just kind of curing the bean.
Correct.
If you want to say.
Yeah,
as we discussed a little bit in episode 6.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the first kind of myth that I want to kind of debunk. The next is espresso versus drip coffee. What is more caffeinated?
Okay. Let me make a guess before you tell me the answer. I'm going to think espresso is more caffeinated because it seems that it's more concentrated than, am I right or wrong?
So let's say you did an Americana.
Okay.
And we're going to do an 8-ounce Americana.
So actually, 2 shots. Okay.
Let's do a 12-ounce Americana.
Ugh. So 2 shots of espresso.
And 10 ounces of water.
And 10 ounces of water.
And we did a 12-ounce drip. Well, in espresso, normally per ounce of espresso extracted is 40 grams of caffeine. 40 milligrams. Of caffeine.
Okay.
In drip coffee, every ounce of drip coffee is 10 milligrams.
10 milligrams.
So if you did 12 ounces of drip coffee,
that'd be 120
exactly.
milligrams.
And if you did a 2-ounce espresso and 10 ounces of water for an Americana, you would only have 80 milligrams of coffee. So,
do you know? Sorry, not the sidebar. What is the recommended caffeine content for an average person in a day?
Well, so caffeine is a FDA approved drug.
Sure.
So
you have those guidelines for calorie content. If you're an average guy, 2,000 calories.
What they say is that a human being is good with 1 gram of caffeine.
Which is 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams.
Correct.
Thank you, metric system.
So if you would think about it, that would be if 1 gram
day.
Per day.
That's a lot of caffeine.
That's a lot of caffeine. And I think at that moment of 1 gram of caffeine, I don't think most humans can take 1 gram of caffeine. I think
that seems like a lot.
It does. So I actually looked this up because I am very interested in the drug effect of coffee.
He's an addict, as you can tell.
And
personality.
but it does something to the whole our physical system and so our mental system. It does, and that's going to be something that comes on in a later episode that I'm really trying to curate a lot of data on.
That sounds very.
It's very exciting.
Intense.
But
okay, so your example, that's pretty interesting.
1 ounce of drip yields 10 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay,
and then 1 ounce of espresso yields 40 milligrams of caffeine.
The same thing with, let's say you got a latte. A typical latte is going to be 2 shots of espresso.
Correct.
Which is going to be 80 milligrams of caffeine, which would be equivalent if you just got an 8-ounce cup of drip coffee from Starbucks. That's going to be the same content. So if you're just searching for caffeine to stay awake, people, as opposed to drinking 16 ounces of drip coffee, you might say, hey, let me just take 3 or 4 shots of espresso. So I'm drinking in less volume and still getting that kick.
Correct. So I think most people associate an espresso with more caffeine because of how it kicks into the system. So you're actually the way it hits
absorbed in your bloodstream,
exactly, a lot quicker.
The more you know, guys.
And so you got to consume. You'd have to consume 8 ounces of drip coffee.
Yep.
Which may be easy for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's going to fill your bladder.
Correct.
So a lot of people,
But you could do 2 ounces and essentially yield the same effect if you're looking for that kick, that punch.
Wake me up. Let's get going.
Right,
Might get my day going.
Wake me up.
Okay.
So, but here is a big variable in the extraction of caffeine. It's temperature. So temperature, the coffee bean is really affected by the temperature at the water that it hits the coffee. So you could actually take drip coffee and get less than 10 milligrams per ounce if you used a colder
Sure. We
coffee.
talked about this in a previous episode, the extraction, which is extracting the flavor and the caffeine from the bean. And one thing that maybe earlier on we didn't quite realize, I think originally you were saying that you were doing your pour-overs at
a lot lower temp, like a 185, 183.
And come to find out, closer to 200 or 205 Fahrenheit. That's Fahrenheit, not Celsius.
Yeah.
It's going to yield more extraction, which is a more flavorful cup, and sounds like more of the caffeine's going to come out.
Right,
correct?
and so on a higher-end espresso machine, you're going to have pre-infusion, and so what's going to happen is the water is going to hit the puck just for a second to pre-infuse it, and then it's going to flood a very high pressure and temperature. And so, you can, on high-end machines, you can dial in the temperature of the head to actually get proper extraction. I mean, there's a lot of
this
nerdy
is really
details.
nerdy stuff that
Correct.
Probably not something you're going to want to look at.
Most home baristas are never going to be able to dial in their head temperature, but just know that under temperature extraction can really change the amount of caffeine that comes out, or under temperatures. Let me say
that. Would that mean that, for instance, if you did a cold brew, which is seeping overnight, is
Correct.
that going? I'm going to assume that's going to have less caffeine content.
That's why. That's why you have to steep it for so long.
Oh.
So that's why steeping cold brew coffee is not necessarily to properly infuse the coffee grounds. That's not the case.
Okay.
It's actually how slow the caffeine is extracted from the bean at that temperature. So flavor is actually also extracted a lot slower with a cold process.
It's a more mellow taste.
So if you ever get a chance and you have a kettle that you can dial in, what I recommend you doing is taking a bag of beans that you have, using the same amount of grinds, making multiple cups maybe day after day, using the same exact process, and actually dial in your temperature on your kettle. Okay. So for me, I was started at 185, and when I got my digital kettle, I went 185, I went 190, I went 195, 200, and actually went upwards of right at boiling, because what's boiling, 212, something like that? At atmospheric level. I mean,
depends on your altitude.
Right. So what I did is I actually boiled the water in my kettle and then backed it off. As soon as it stopped boiling, I would pull the cap off to make sure as soon as it stopped boiling and stopped seeing bubbles come up, then I would pour it over. And it actually yields a drastic different taste
flavor
in those steps all the way up. So just to remind you, we're on location and they're grinding and they're doing stuff. But
real quick, I think we mentioned. I think I actually referenced in the last show notes the kettle you're talking about is a really good kettle and it's relatively inexpensive. It's a Bona Vita.
Yeah,
I think it's like $40 or $45. It's a gooseneck kettle.
Yep.
Which gives you a lot of control if you're pouring out, the water for a pour over.
Yep.
And it's easy to get from someplace like Amazon. So just a quick side note on that.
Yeah, so if you go to the show notes of episode 7.
I'll put it on this, too. We'll have it on this.
And it'll be in here.
All right, Aaron, so what have we not talked about caffeine content? Pour-overs. Obviously, we're big fans of pour-overs here.
Yep.
Are the pour-over caffeine content, is it going to be, what's it closest to?
So it's very close to the drip coffee. You have a lot more control over the extraction, over the bloom process. You have a lot more control over that, but you're still kind of a base is 10 milligrams per ounce of drip
that sounds good.
pour over coffee. And
I guess that could fluctuate a little bit if you, like our ratios for, what's your current pour over ratio? Coffee
I'm
grams?
still 18 to 1.
So let's say you maybe like your stuff really strong and you did a 14 or 15 to 1.
Or 13 to 1.
Like really put hair on your chest stuff. I'm going to make an assumption that would probably have a little bit higher caffeine content.
Well, it would, but you got to remember that if it's this is the information that we're giving you is under proper extraction, right?
Sure.
It's not. It's really best world case scenario. Okay, so you can get different
first world problems.
Exactly. I mean,
like
that's what this series is about. It's really in the best case scenario. How much can we yield in caffeine at this moment? So one of the things too that we did not mention in here, and it's not. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole yet. Is Arabica versus Robusta beans.
Yeah, we'll have to take that for another topic.
That's a whole other topic, but all we're talking about is Arabica beans.
Which is most of what you're going to find on the shelves today. So Robusta, that's something we'll discuss later.
Yeah, so, but as we said, we're here at Enderly, and we have...
Very cool place.
We walked in, they allowed us to record the podcast, and we have a special guest, an Enderly employee that's going to hop on and chat with us.
Yeah, man. What's up? Welcome to Enderly. My name is Tacoby Hines, and I am a novice barista here at Enderly.
Listen, don't let him fool you. Don't let him fool you. I come in quite often, and here's one thing that I love about it. My second time into Enderly, I walked through the door, and he remembered my name, and he was like, "Aaron, what's up?" I was like, "What? Hold on. It's the second time I've ever been in here, and I know there's a lot of people that come through this door, and you remember my name, dude. That's a big deal to me. I appreciate it."
Hey, you was a big deal, bro. Big personality. Easy got to remember. So.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it. So one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on here is we wanted you to tell us a little bit about Enderly, as it is what their mission, and just kind of give us a little overview about it.
Man, so I've been at Enderly for about 5 months. And so I came in maybe in the middle of the shop being open.
Correct.
And so their whole theme, man, upon me coming on here was, man, that it was people first.
People first.
People first. Wanted to love on the people. Made sure that people came here.
Yeah.
Had a good experience. And as well as good coffee.
Yeah.
Right. So we do care about good coffee,
Yeah.
but we also care about a good experience.
Yeah.
And
Enderly's really about this community where they're at. I mean, they really are giving back and helping a lot. And I mean, you are correct. It is people first. I've been in here multiple times where I've seen Tony give away drinks to people that come in off the street.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a big deal. I don't know many coffee shops giving away free coffee. That's not how you stay in business. But he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
And like Enderly is people first. And dude, so like that's a big deal. But you also have a T-shirt that I have loved. And tell me about this slogan, because you sell them, you have them for sale. And so tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the slogan is nah, no cream or sugar. And so it's more so of a response to when you come in, you get a drip, right?
Yep.
And when I would come in, folks would be like, yo, do you want cream and sugar? And I would be like, nah, no cream and sugar. And so it's something that kind of rings in my head. And so I decided to make kind of a creative, collective thing out of it to create kind of content out of. And it'll be something that will kind of speak directly to and from Black issues.
Yeah.
But also, like, life is bittersweet.
Correct.
Right? And there's good, take the good with the bad. And don't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how you ruin things.
Mm-hmm.
Take life as it is. Move forward, man. And that's how you grow. That's how you evolve.
See, I love it because, one, I love just straight black coffee, okay?
Right.
So, like, I love the whole idea, but I love the undertone and the under message underneath it and, like, how important that is. And because, I mean, you're dealing with Black issues and like, that's just what you've done with it. And I've watched through the social media. I've been a part and observed it from a distance.
Yeah.
But then to kind of talk to you one-on-one, to kind of hear the feedback, to kind of understand why you're doing it, it's very encouraging and very exciting. So, listen, cop a shirt, find out how you can get shirts. How can they get shirts? Or how can they support this movement?
Man, y'all could come to the Enderly, and hopefully when you come to Enderly, you get a cup of coffee or a latte or whatever.
Yep.
And then on your way out, man, I'll have like some rolled up shirts on the shelf next to like a hat or so. And you can buy one through the shop.
Yep.
Or you can go to No Cream or Sugar, or I am Tacoby Hines on Instagram and hit the link.
Yeah, so his information is going to be in the show notes of how you can get a hold of him. We're also going to have Enderly's tag in there as well. And listen, seriously, like, we wanted to have him on. We wanted to be very courteous of his time because he's actually making coffee today. He's slinging drinks, and so he stepped away for just a moment. But, Tacoby, thank you so much for coming in, dude. I really appreciate you remembering my name. That's a big deal, dude, and big deal. And so, look, cop his brand, follow him on Instagram, and thank you so much for coming on, man.
Hey, man, thanks for letting me. Seriously, this was cool.
So, seriously, Enderly, thank you so much for allowing us to record here. And, man, we love what you're doing, love what the business is about, love how much y'all love coffee and are just your dedication to quality. That's what we love. So, but we've had some great feedback from people on either social media or commenting.
Yeah. So, again, we are always looking for topics that you guys are going to find interesting, and we appreciate that. So constantly tag us on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Or our email is hello@coffeesnobs.net.
Yep.
But recently we had someone reach out and say they were interested in mocha and stovetop setups. That's something we haven't really discussed at all, really. So I know a little bit about stovetop setups. My first experience was a friend who has a Bialetti.
Yep.
Bialetti is a stovetop percolator.
Yep.
It's Italian. It's a classic design that's been around for, years and years. And my friend always said, "Oh, let me make you some espresso," and would put probably like a Starbucks bean or a Caribou coffee bean and percolate it. And she would
very
make
dark roast.
Very dark roast. And she said, "Oh, this is espresso." And at the time, I didn't really appreciate the difference. But talk about the Bialetti a little bit.
So
Aaron.
the way that it works is you have you put this device on the stove, and water is at the bottom of it. And so the water boils, and as it boils and as the steam pressure builds up, it goes up the tube up to the top canister, which holds the coffee. Mm-hmm. Then it infuses the coffee, and then the coffee drips down into a middle canister that holds the coffee, and then you're able to pour out the coffee.
So that's like a percolator setup. That's something that like my grandparents probably have.
Correct.
I mean, that's just old school.
My
like
original kettle
World
that
War
I
II.
first had was a percolator.
It's a good and relatively easy way to make coffee. You put your grinds in.
Yep.
Put your water, set it on the stove, boil, and boom.
Yep.
So that's something that, honestly, we'll probably want to do a little more research on. But with the mocha, or maybe it's just a brand name I'm using, Bialetti.
Yep.
My friend used an espresso roast, or perhaps even an Italian roast. And I'm not sure if we mentioned much about Italians on episode 6, but Italian roast is very dark, like an espresso.
Yeah.
So
and that's where this device, because the amount of water that you can put in versus the amount of coffee that you put in, the yield difference is not normal of what a pour over is. It is going to be a bolder taste. It just is, because if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be very difficult to get the ratio if you pack that thing full of coffee.
Yeah.
The way that it's just not a normal extraction ratio.
It's a good way of making coffee. I think you're essentially making really concentrated coffee.
Very concentrated coffee.
So you might want to. Some people might mistakenly call that espresso, but it's just going to yield, a lot of coffee with a little bit of water. It's going to be some strong stuff.
Yeah.
But there's one main thing that you're missing if you consider a mocha or a Bialetti as an espresso, because espresso is when coffee is infused under pressure. And there's 9 bar pressure, 14 bars, and that's what is attributed to a lot of your fancy machines. So I would say that Bialetti is a really good way to make some really strong coffee in concentrated quantities. But me personally, at least, I would not consider that an espresso. That's just stovetop coffee.
Yeah, it's just stovetop percolator. It's just it's a traditional method to use. But these are the type of things that we love. We love to hear people's different ways of making coffee or questions that they have. And so, it's
like I said, we appreciate the feedback, and we're enjoying our current series, How to Know What You Don't Know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that we ourselves don't know, even though we are the snobs. But thanks again for listening to part 1 of How to Know What You Don't Know regarding caffeine content. We got several other episodes coming up in this series. So for today, my name is Tyler Dancy.
Yep. How can they find you? TYDANCY
on the Twitter or the Instagram. What about you, Aaron?
Mine is Aaron, AARON, BEAVER at Instagram. Yep.
Cool. And
and Chad, it's as always, lockdot.net / connect.
So cool, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the barista from Enderly for chatting with us. Thank you, Enderly, for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for sponsoring us in the future. I'm just going to speak it into existence. So, all right, for today, signing off, guys.
Adios.